Hello, and welcome to Marketing Management Chapter 1. So today we are going to be talking about it's just an introduction to marketing management, kind of exposing you guys and sharing with you guys the basics of what is involved in marketing. Because a lot of times students really misunderstand marketing, right? People think of marketing as advertising, they think of marketing as all gimmick. But a lot of what we do and teach and engage with and research that we conduct in marketing has to do with much deeper concepts. And so that's really what we're going to covering. And so this is just an introduction to that. So we start off by talking about in the slides that I would have given you, there's a small case study on NASCAR. And why is NASCAR interesting? So a lot of you might be saying NASCAR, I'm not really into NASCAR. But the reason why we studied NASCAR is because NASCAR historically is not it's not a sport that was around for many years. It's not like basketball or soccer that has been in existence for a very long time. And yet in the time that it has been around, NASCAR has been very successful in branding themselves, in creating value for the brand, for the sport. And more importantly, NASCAR fans are some of the most brand loyal fans that exist on the planet. Whether you have a NASCAR driver advertising headache powder, or they're advertising oil, or they're advertising sportswear, their brands support them and love them. So they have been really successful in figuring out who their audience is, what is appealing to that audience, and then convincing that audience to follow the brand regardless of what the brand engages with or who engages with the brand. And so that is a really powerful story about NASCAR, and you can read up more about it in the text. So, what is marketing? So, there's a definition in the slides, and it talks about marketing from a societal point of view, from a social point of view. But really, marketing is about kind of creating value around exchanges. I want you to purchase something from me, and in exchange for what I'm giving you, you're going to give me money, cash, whatever you want to. Credit, however you want to identify that. But the important thing is that you have to find value in what I'm offering you. And I need to demonstrate to you what that value is. And so, I've had a student, for example, say he'll pay $300 for a tie. I'm not paying $300 for a tie. He finds there is enough value depending on the tie. He's not paying $300 for any old tie, but he will pay $300 for a designer tie. And I'm saying, well, what is in that tie that makes you think it's worth it? And he say, well, maybe the material, maybe the style of it, uniqueness of it, maybe the experience he has when he goes and buys a tie. All of those things speak to the value that he's getting from purchasing the tie, wearing the tie, engaging with the tie, feeling that the brand of the tie, maybe there are symbols of the brand in the particular in the tie itself, and he finds that to be attractive. All of those things speak to value. So marketing is really about value and customers being able to understand, identify with, and believe in that value. That is really the essentials of what marketing is. So you see the marketing process, and we have in figure one kind of really identifies the various different stages that we go through as a marketer. So you have to understand, in the past, when we were thinking about this marketing equation, marketing really was just about, okay, I am going to do hard selling. So I'm going to sell this product, and I'm going to convince you in my sales pitch that you cannot exist in the world without marketing. And really and truly, I think we've evolved a lot in the marketing field from that, because now we understand marketing is really about understanding where there's a need or a want in the marketplace. What do I mean by that? Well, there are two types of innovations, right? There is continuous innovation, and there's disruptive innovation. So continuous innovation is whereby I am just making incremental improvements. And so I'm just changing a little small thing. So if I'm in my class and I'm teaching one way, Maybe instead of using a blackboard, I'll use the blackboard and I'll use some PowerPoint. Incremental. But when we're talking about disruptive teaching is where disruptive innovation rather is where you just change the entire way that you're approaching something. So maybe instead of teaching in a classroom in physical space with a blackboard, I teach online, like what this class is about. That's disruptive. Uber is disruptive. Smartphones are disruptive. Digital film is disruptive. And so what you find is that it completely changes how we see something. And I think more and more marketers are looking at how can they look at what customers want and provide it in a totally different way, from a disruptive way. So I think now we're at a space, particularly post COVID-19, where marketers are going to really have to think about how the consumer um, thinks about their experiences with a product, and what is it the essential need, what is the core need that they're trying to provide, and how can they do that better than the competition. And so that's the strategy that we've been talking about, and I'm telling you is a huge part of what we do in marketing. I have to then design a strategy around how am I going to reach you and provide that need for you. And so I'm going to create a program where I am going to deliver superior value. And we're going to talk about what value itself means in a little bit. And then I'm going to build profitable relationships around creating that value. I'm going to build relationships with my suppliers. I'm going to build relationships with my employees. I'm going to build relationships with my consumers. And so all of that is part of me providing value. And then in the end, I'm going to make a distinction and understand exactly how did you benefit from this value. So I'm going to measure my success in KPIs, with key performance indicators, and I'm going to document how I did on performing on these values. So what are my needs and wants? So your needs and wants are very basic in some instances. They're shaped by family, they're shaped by culture, they're shaped by jobs. Your demands are wants that you back with buying power. So what does that mean? Well, I could want, a rocket ship to go to Mars. I could want a unicorn, but I'm not going to get any of those things if, well, unicorn, I'm probably not going to get, period. But I'm not going to get my rocket ship unless I can afford a rocket ship, right? So a want is just that. I could want things all day long and twice on Sunday. But if I don't have the money to back up that want, then I don't have a demand. And that's the difference. The demand is where we see want with buying power. And so a lot of times we have to think about needs, right? We have to think about needs because so your need, your want, your demand, all of these are kind of basic different versions of the same thing. Your need is a basic state, something that you need for survival, right? We're talking hunger, we're talking safety, we're talking shelter, thirst, etc., etc. Your want now is a little bit above that, right? And then your demand is above that. So that's basically what we're talking about. All right. So when we talk about certain marketing campaigns, they focus on your needs, right? Things that you have to satisfy. You don't have a choice. And so that Got Milk campaign talks about your need for certain types of nutrition, and then they took it off from there, right? And so we're going to talk about some other examples of how advertising companies have really kind of utilized this need and gone off on fabulous, interesting, dynamic ways of identifying that. Okay. So from this need, we as a marketer, we're going to come up with some kind of offer. We're going to come up with an offer that, wow, it can be a range of things. A marketing offer is a combination of products, services, information. We in an offer, you see offers all the time on TV and ad campaigns. You see offers in when you go into a store and you're seeing sale signs, right? All of those are offers, and sometimes offers are pretty basic, and sometimes offers are much more elaborate. And it just is kind of think of it as that combination of things that you are going to package for your consumer, that deal that you're going to offer them in exchange for what they give you back. And sometimes the key to your consumer seeing, hearing, understanding your offer is when you personalize it. And so you have to think about whether we're talking about a need or a want or a demand. What is the personal message? What are the key things that this consumer is thinking of? And that's why we talk about in marketing, we're using so much psychology. We're using psychology all day long and twice on Sunday. I mean, think about it, right? There are so many ridiculous things that marketers are able to get consumers to buy that they have absolute no need for. So the offer piece is tremendous. It's so important. And that's where the value comes in. We as marketers have to deliver value. And we're going to talk about what exactly that means because there are three forms of value, and I'm going to get into it in a little bit. But we're delivering value because we want to satisfy our consumer, and we really want our consumer to feel at the end of their purchase, regardless of what that purchase is, that they enjoyed it, that they benefited from it, and that they would want to do it again. And that is satisfaction, right? So satisfaction, when we talk about a basic understanding of satisfaction, we're talking about looking at what people's expectations were versus what the performance was that they got in this product or service. So what did I expect and what did you deliver? And keep in mind that if I have really low expectations and at the same time you had really low performance, once my expectations are a little bit lower than my performance, even though my performance is low, boom, you're satisfied. Similarly, if I have really high expectations and I had high performance, but my performance was lower than my expectations, I'm dissatisfied. So I think it's so important for us to kind of understand the satisfaction continuum and dynamic as well as value. We're going to talk about what that means in a bit. So we're focusing on the exchange. We're looking at what is it that your consumers thought that they were going to get for what it is that you're giving them. And that's essentially value, right? That is value where I'm coming at you with a set of things that I'm expecting. And I am giving you something in return for those things. And so value is benefits versus cost, essentially, right? And the hope is I am going to perceive value in a positive light if I feel what I got was worth what I paid. And so marketers are always trying to figure out how can I deliver on value? Because value all consumers want to feel as if, boy, I got a deal. Oh, this was worth it. I didn't pay too much for this. Nobody wants to feel as if they were suckered. Nobody wants to be like, wow, I can't believe I paid that much money for this piece of crap. Everyone, regardless of what it is, whether it's M&M's or BMW, I want to feel as if I got a good product or service for what I paid for. So then there's the issue of marketing management. And marketing management is essentially kind of the art and science of building this relationship and creating this exchange with the consumer. And so we always have to think about two big questions when we're thinking about this. Who are we trying to sell this product to? Who's our target audience? Who are the customers that we want to reach? And then, man, how are we going to reach them? Those are some key questions. So in the asking of the who, that's our customer segment. That's our audience, right? And we have to really know and understand who our audience is because that's going to be critical. And then we have to think about how are we going to provide a service for them? What is the product that we want them to get? What is it that they're looking for in this purchase? And so in doing that, we essentially define what was known as a value proposition. And a value proposition is essentially we're breaking down what is it that we're going to give our consumers for the price point that we're going to ask them to pay, essentially, right? And I think the value proposition for consumers is changing all the time. It's constantly changing because think of it like this. What you valued in high school is not what you value today. And what you would have paid for something, think of what you would have paid maximum amount of dollars for in high school. Today, we're like, no way on earth I'm paying that kind of money. So the value proposition is important. You know, when I was in grad school many years ago, um, we did the Netflix flicks case. And I remember it was kind of funny because at the time when Netflix first came out, you can't even imagine. They were thinking that their subscription, their monthly subscription, was going to be $40. Can you imagine? Now, in today, people don't even want to pay $8 for Netflix. Half of y'all are like, Mom, Dad, what's the Netflix account number? Y'all don't even want to buy your own Netflix. And so the idea is that in today's market, we don't even have a value proposition for Netflix that even remotely resembles what their value proposition was before. So when they first came to market, their value proposition was going to be just what, $40. $40. Can you imagine? None of y'all would pay $40 for Netflix in these times. I know that for a fact. Not one of y'all would be willing to pay that. And so that presents a major dilemma for the Netflix problem. So when we are thinking about value, we have to think about, in these times, given who the competitors are, given what the alternatives are or substitutes are for my product or my service, what will you be willing to pay? What are the benefits versus what are the costs? Okay, we'll be back shortly.